Welcome to the shadow frequency, where the veil between this world and the next grows thin. The things that whisper in the dark are given voice. From the cryptic candlelit studios, deep in the Indiana forests, your host, Matt Wilson, and his spectral producer, Juniper Ravenwood, unearth the forbidden, the forgotten, and the fearsome. So, still your heart, dim the light, and listen closely. For once you tune into the shadow frequency, you may never tune out.
Hello again, and welcome back to the shadow frequency. I'm Juniper, and tonight we're tuning our dial toward a lonely stretch of southern Africa where the desert keeps its secrets beneath red earth, thorn trees, and an ocean of stars. You know, there's something unsettling about a place so vast that even a blazing object falling from the sky might vanish before the rest of the world knew it had arrived. It makes you wonder how many mysteries are not truly hidden, just very, very far away. Let me pull tonight's episode from the cabinet. This is episode 366, the Kalahari UFO crash. The spacecraft allegedly shot out of the South African sky. According to the story, on May 7th, 1989, an unknown craft tore into South African airspace at extraordinary speed. Mirage fighters were allegedly scrambled. An experimental weapon was fired and the object teamed down near the Kalahari Desert. A recovery team supposedly found a seamless silver disc, scorched ground, and 2 living occupants. It's part military mystery, part crash retrieval legend, and part Cold War paranoia, all wrapped in documents that may conceal the truth or may have been designed to manufacture it. Chris, let me begin with you. What grabs you first? The idea that something was brought down or the secrecy that followed?
The fact that they allegedly fired on it, June. Most UFO encounters are about chasing lights or watching something disappear. This story says humanity saw an unknown machine and chose to knock it out of the sky. If even a sliver of that is true, then somebody may have started a conflict without knowing who or what was inside.
Exactly. It changes the mood from observation to confrontation, and that makes the silence afterward feel even heavier. Matt, what do you make of a case in which the evidence became almost as mysterious as the event itself?
That's what pulls me in. The story did not simply appear as campfire folklore. It arrived dressed like an official secret, with operation names, military language, and descriptions of beings who were allegedly still alive. Then the paper trail began to twist. When the documents start behaving like part of the mystery, you have to wonder whether you're reading evidence, bait, or camouflage.
And tonight, we're going to follow that trail all the way into the sand. Matt, the record is yours.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. Hosted by Matt Wilson. Produced by Juniper Ravenwood. With Chris Beach. The darkness continues.
Thanks, Juniper, for pulling a case that feels less like an old UFO report and more like a classified thriller buried beneath an entire desert. Let's open the file on May 7th, 1989. According to the account that reached British investigator Tony Dodd, radar operators detected an unidentified object entering South African airspace at tremendous speed. It ignored attempts at communication, followed no ordinary civilian corridor, and moved toward the Kalahari region near Botswana, an immense territory where borders disappear beneath heat, scrub, and distance. 2 South African Air Force Mirage fighters were supposedly ordered to intercept it. Picture those pilots climbing towards something nobody could identify while controllers fed them coordinates and watched the unknown craft continue without a word. Then came the order that transformed a sighting into a confrontation. Engage the object before it vanished into the darkness ahead. Something had entered the guarded sky, and someone on the ground had decided it must not be allowed to leave. The weapon named in the story was the Thor II. described as a laser, a maser, or some form of directed energy system mounted on a Mirage. The wording shifts, but the central claim does not. The pilot acquired the target and fired. Almost immediately, the object began losing altitude, not tumbling like an airplane with a shattered wing, but descending as though the force holding it aloft had been wounded. The Mirage remained above while the glowing craft crossed the emptiness below. Somewhere near the South African-Botswana border, it struck the Kalahari. A recovery force was dispatched with astonishing speed, and when its vehicles arrived, the fighter was allegedly still circling like a sentry. Below lay a fresh scar in the desert, so hot that surrounding sand and stone had fused into glass-like crust. Electronic equipment reportedly faltered near the wreckage. One patch of earth shone as though the sky had burned its fingerprints into the ground, and something metallic waited at its center. The recovery team allegedly found no conventional aircraft. The object was a polished silver disc, smooth and hard, with no visible rivets, seams, wings, engine intakes, or familiar control surfaces. Unevenly spaced porthole-like openings interrupted the hull, and what looked like landing gear had extended beneath it. That detail suggests the craft had not merely fallen, it may have tried to save itself. The disc sat partly embedded in vitrified earth amid radiation said to disrupt instruments. Some versions mention strange exterior symbols, unlike ordinary military identification. Imagine the crew approaching in protective gear, weapons ready, their boots cracking cooled sheets of desert glass. They were beside a machine that had crossed their defenses, survived an experimental blast, and reached the ground mostly intact. If those portholes and landing supports were what they appeared to be, this was no meteor fragment. It was a vehicle, and the men outside had every reason to believe its pilot was still moving behind that seamless skin. I've got an item from the file here, a reproduction of the 2-page document circulated under the codename Black Horse. Even as a copy, it has an unnerving appearance. Block headings, military departments, classification language, coded references, and fields implying that a much larger record exists beyond the page. It purports to summarize the craft and recovery, while related material describes what the team removed from inside. Tony Dodd examined this paper after years as a police officer and UFO investigator. He said the information came through South African intelligence contacts. James Van Grunen, the man connected to the documents, later signed an affidavit declaring that the Black Horse file had been given freely and that exposing the operation was a duty to humankind. This page offers no comforting distance of someone saw a light. It offers codes, measurements, bodies, and procedure. Whether copied from a secret record or reconstructed from memory, it leads straight to a hatch forced open in the desert, and the living things waiting inside. The occupants were allegedly humanoids between 4 and 5 feet tall, dressed in tight gray suits. Their thin bodies supported oversized heads, and enormous dark eyes dominated faces with only slight openings for ears, nostrils, and a mouth. Descriptions mention grayish-blue skin, 3-fingered hands, and ribbed or scaled torsos. One being reportedly lashed out, scratching a recovery team member before being restrained. That detail makes the account disturbingly physical. These were not bodies laid out as artifacts. They were survivors, injured, surrounded, and confronted by armed humans who had brought down their craft. Both were placed in containment while specialists secured the disc. No language was recorded, no plea preserved, and no explanation offered for their journey. There is only the image of those dark eyes taking in soldiers, floodlights, and desert. If this was first contact, it was no greeting beneath the stars. It was capture and confusion, with neither side knowing what the other might do next. Then the operation widened. The wreckage and occupants were supposedly transported to a secure South African installation, later linked to a shadowy facility called Camp 13. From there, the trail crossed the Atlantic. Under the name Operation Silver Diamond, The craft and 2 occupants were allegedly transferred to American custody and taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, a location already woven into Roswell lore. Some versions claim South Africa exchanged the object for restricted technology. Others whisper that one occupant remained in Africa, hidden even from the Americans. The case stops feeling like a crash and becomes a transaction conducted beneath a wall of silence. Soldiers close the perimeter. The evidence travels thousands of miles, and the public never sees it. By the time the story reaches Dodd, the site has been cleared, sand covers the scar, and the survivors have vanished into locked rooms. But someone left paper footprints, and the closer investigators followed them, the more those footprints seemed to lead into a trap. It's a trap! That is the nightmare at the center of the first half. Not merely that something came down, but that living occupants may have looked out from captivity and watched their ship disappear into human hands.
And if one of them really remained in South Africa, then the crash site may not have been the end of the encounter at all.
What gets me is the alleged decision to fire first. Whatever followed may have begun with a human finger on a trigger.
When we return, we'll examine Tony Dodd, James Van Grunen, the documents that began to unravel, and the possibility that a hoax can sometimes hide more than it reveals. Juniper and Chris, I'll turn it over to you guys for the break.
Something fell from the sky over the Kalahari, or someone created an elaborate trail to make the world believe it did. The deeper investigators dug into the desert, the faster the evidence disappeared beneath shifting sands.
So far, we have an unknown craft pursued across South African skies, an experimental weapon, a scorched patch of desert, and 2 alleged survivors disappearing into military custody. But what do you think? Would forged paperwork and end the story there for you? Or make you wonder who wanted the trail to collapse? We'll follow that question in the second half. For now, Chris, the frequency is yours.
Cheers, June. What unsettles me is the thought that a first contact story may have started with an attack, then been swallowed by the desert. If this case has you listening a little closer, like and subscribe wherever you found us. It really does help the algorithms. You'll find the Shadow Frequency on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast directories. Visit shadowfrequencypodcast.com for every episode, the companion blog, merch, show notes, and links to all our platforms. You can also buy us a coffee there, or send an email or voice message we may play in a future episode. June, I'll hand it back to you.
Time to fire up the spectral cosmic message materializer. Flipping the switches now. The vacuum tubes are glowing, the needle is twitching, and something has just begun tapping from inside the paper feed.
Message retrieved from the void.
Let's pull this transmission free before the machine decides to answer it for us. This one comes from Francis in Texas. It says, "Hi, Shadow Frequency crew. Most evenings I put on Spotify while I'm out in my garage bringing old washers, microwaves, and coffee makers back from the dead. When I finish the newest episode, I usually switch over to Pandora and let an older one play while I clean up the bench. UFO cases are my favorite, especially when they cross over with government conspiracies, because nothing makes a broken refrigerator seem less strange than wondering what may be locked inside a secret hangar. Keep the files open, and if you ever hear knocking from inside an unplugged appliance, don't answer it." Francis in Texas. Haha. Francis, I love the idea that you're reviving appliances while we investigate things that may have fallen out of the sky. But that warning about unplugged appliances is going to stay with me the next time the studio refrigerator makes noise. Thank you for listening on Spotify and Pandora. If anyone else wants to send us a message, write to shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. You can also visit the website as well. Chris, I'm turning it back over to you for tonight's Shadow News.
Cheers, June. Francis sounds like exactly the person you want nearby when the toaster starts receiving signals from Zeta Reticuli. Although I agree, I wouldn't open anything that knocks back. Here's tonight's Shadow News. A rare first-hand UFO report from the 1950s has turned up in the most unlikely of places, a box of assorted items bought at a flea market in southwest England. The letter was written by Barbara Graves of South Africa and describes a strange sighting she witnessed on the 8th of March 1953 while visiting the Botanical Gardens in Durban. Graves said she spotted a perfectly round object moving high across a clear blue sky. She and her companion agreed that it was not an airplane and watched as it travelled some distance, appeared to hover in one position, and then climbed higher until it disappeared from view. What makes the account particularly intriguing is that two officers from the South African Air Force reportedly saw a similar object over the same area on the very same day. The letter is now being offered at auction, with specialists describing it as an exceptionally rare surviving eyewitness account from the early years of the modern UFO era, a time when such reports often attracted fascination, skepticism and ridicule in equal measure. That's tonight's Shadow News. June, I'll toss it back to you.
Thank you, Chris. A forgotten letter from South Africa resurfacing in England more than 70 years later. It's almost as though tonight's frequency pulled another piece of the same sky out of hiding. And that is what makes physical records so powerful. They can sleep in drawers, boxes, and archives long after the witness is gone, then suddenly begin speaking again. In our second half, Matt follows a very different paper trail. The alleged Kalahari documents, the investigator who challenged them, and the unsettling question of whether false evidence can ever be wrapped around a true event. Matt, take us back into the file.
The military truly shot down a spacecraft. The Kalahari became the site of humanity's first hostile encounter with another world. If the documents were forged, the real mystery is why the deception was convincing enough to fool seasoned investigators.
Thanks, Juniper and Francis. If anything with three-fingered hands reaches out from behind a washer, send the voice message before you run. Chris, the Barbara Graves letter is a perfect companion because it represents the opposite kind of evidence, a personal account written near the time of the event and preserved by accident. The Kalahari story arrived wearing a uniform. Tony Dodd received documents purporting to come from South African military channels, complete with operational language, craft descriptions, and recovery details. After 25 years as a police officer, Dodd had become one of Britain's best-known UFO investigators. He worked contacts, compared details, and pressed sources. The material drew him into anonymous envelopes, intelligence claims, international calls, and warnings. James Van Grunen, the man behind much of the information, met Dodd and Dr. Henry Azevedo in England, answered questions, supplied names, and signed an affidavit tied to Black Horse. Dodd said his inquiries appeared to confirm portions of the incident. The deeper he went, the less the story behaved like folklore, and the more it resembled a secret deciding whether it wanted to be found. But here is the skeptical angle we must put squarely on the table. I pulled another item from the file folder here. It's an excerpt from Cynthia Hind's 1993 article, Anatomy of a Hoax, the UFO crash on the South African-Botswana border. Hind stopped admiring the drama and examined the paperwork. She reportedly found 14 spelling errors in supposedly official material, plus odd phrasing, questionable terminology, formatting problems, and geographic details that did not fit. Even the year drifted between 1988 and 1989. The pages were in English when some researchers expected such internal material to be in African, and investigators could not independently locate the personnel named or establish a clean chain from a military office to the documents. Most damaging, Van Grunen acknowledged that some pages had been fabricated or reconstructed. Hind concluded the crash retrieval story was an elaborate hoax. On ordinary evidentiary grounds, that is powerful. One source built official-looking pages. Those pages impressed researchers, and repetition turned invention into legend. If we stopped here, the Kalahari disk would dissolve into ink, ambition, and desert air. But the man who admitted making the map still insisted its destination was real. Van Groenen's explanation was that he had not invented the underlying event. He claimed a South African Air Force contact identified in retellings as pilot Hendrik Grief had heard the information within military circles. In another version, authentic material was shown to Van Groenen but could not be removed, so he reproduced what he remembered in official-looking form. That does not repair the evidence. A reconstructed secret document is not an authentic one. But it creates the possibility that keeps this case alive. What if a true account reached the public inside false paperwork? Dodd believed his intelligence contacts confirmed details not broadly known. Later literature described Silver Diamond as a joint South African-American recovery, linked it to Wright-Patterson, and repeated stories that Dodd received intimidating calls and warnings. None of that gives us a disc, radar tape, or occupant. Yet it makes the hoax stranger than a clean confession. Van Groenen never said the entire story came from his imagination. He said he falsified the container because he could not expose the source. That is exactly what a liar might say to rescue a collapsing tale, and exactly what a frightened intermediary might say after placing a genuine secret in danger. Then there is the setting. South Africa in the late 1980s was surrounded by secrecy, sanctions, regional conflict, and classified weapons development. The apartheid government had powerful reasons to conceal military capabilities and foreign cooperation. That environment does not prove the Thor 2 existed. No dependable public record establishes that a Mirage carried a weapon capable of downing such a craft. Yet, compartmentalization made rumors difficult to kill because important programs already operated beyond public view. The Kalahari offered perfect geography for disappearance. A remote site could be cordoned off, cleared, and lost beneath wind-blown sand before journalists arrived. Every mile of empty ground became another layer of security between the recovery team and the outside world. Supporters cite claims of local knowledge, military sightings, American interest, and a hidden installation called Camp 13. Critics answer that every thread curls back toward unnamed sources, secondary retellings, or contaminated papers. Perhaps that's why the story endures. It arose where absence could mean two opposite things. Either nothing happened and nothing remained, or something enormous happened and the machinery built to erase it worked exactly as intended, leaving only the sound of locked doors closing beneath the desert. So where do I land? I cannot call the Black Horse papers genuine or pretend their problems are minor, but I cannot ignore the mystery they created. If this was only a prank, why did it gather claims of contacts, warnings, transfers, and intelligence interest? A dramatic lie may simply attract decorations. Or perhaps the false pages work like chaff released from an aircraft, bright fragments pulling investigators away from the one object that mattered. Imagine it. Radar operators watch something impossible cross a guarded sky. A pilot fires. A disk settles into red earth. Two injured beings emerge beneath floodlights while technicians stare at technology no nation admits possessing. The site is cleared, the wreckage divided, and the real records disappear. Years later, compromised documents reach the public, fail examination, and poison the case so thoroughly that no authentic witness dares come forward. That is not proof. It is the final possibility that the Kalahari leaves us. A hoax can manufacture belief, but it can also manufacture disbelief. And beneath those contradictory pages, there may still be one true sentence no government wanted us to read. Maybe nothing extraterrestrial fell in the Kalahari, but if something did, the damaged documents may have buried it more completely than the desert ever could.
That's the part I'll be thinking about. Once a false paper enters the file, every genuine page beside it begins to look guilty.
And perhaps that was the point, or perhaps we are giving a clever hoaxer exactly the mythology he wanted.
Either way, the Kalahari case leaves us staring at the same empty stretch of sand, wondering whether it hides a crash site, a carefully engineered fiction, or the remains of a first contact that began with a weapon. Juniper, bring us home.
The alleged wreckage may never have existed, but the story refuses to remain buried. Somewhere between classified weapons, fabricated documents, and whispered testimony lies a truth someone desperately wanted hidden.
Tonight, we followed the alleged Kalahari UFO crash from a radar track over South Africa to a silver disc in the desert. 2 living occupants, a secret recovery, and a paper trail that eventually turned against itself. The physical evidence disappeared, the documents fractured under examination, and the case survives in that uncomfortable space between exposure and cover-up. Thanks for joining us on The Shadow Frequency. Stop by our website, shadowfrequencypodcast.com, for episodes, companion blog, show notes, merch, support links, and more. We'll be back with another strange case from the shadowed edge of the known. You guys, Matt and Chris, you want to say goodnight?
Absolutely. Thank you for spending part of your night with us, and keep watching the skies, but maybe take a careful look at the documents on the ground too. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all. If you see something silver crossing the sky, give it a wave and hope nobody nearby has their finger on the trigger. Cheers.
Good night from all of us at the Shadow Frequency. Until next time, keep one ear tuned to the static, one eye on the stars, and remember, the desert does not have to speak to keep a secret.
This episode was conjured with a solemn vow to explore the unexplained while remaining bound to the truths that have been unearthed. All interpretations are speculative and offered only for your enlightenment and your entertainment.